Hello and welcome to this presentation. My name is Faisal Kamal. I have worked as a regulatory professional within the device space for close to a decade. And in this presentation, I will be talking about how to use AI for regulatory professionals. Okay, so this pertains not only to regulatory professionals within the MedTech space. This is going to be a presentation that is going to generalize how, specifically for regulatory professionals, AI can be of help within the entire health domain. So, pharma, medtech, biotech, all of those domains. Now, let's jump straight into it. This is going to be a little bit of the premise for the presentation. We're going to talk about AI, but we're going to talk about its limitations as well. AI is amazing, but at this moment, information about AI systems is very inconsistent and may actually be misleading. If you are, like most people, you have been online and you have been exposed to many different uh, sources of information that pertain to AI. Some talking about it as if it's a almost living organism or living entity. Others talking about it in much more technical terms. So the information may be quite inconsistent and misleading. And this is why it's very important that you arm yourself with an AI literacy course. I am at the moment taking an AI literacy course, and this is also why I'm able to do this presentation confidently, because it has helped me uh, have a much better understanding of what is the ups and the downs, what are the ups and downs of this, and it helps in sorting out in these sources of information. AI systems are widely available and accessible, and the technology can be deployed in numerous ways. So, just because you have tried out an AI system, you may not know exactly how all AI systems work. There is quite a big difference in how they can be deployed, although they are accessible to you. One deployment may have the AI system utilize databases, another may not in the same sense. So there can be a difference. Now, when I'm talking about AI systems in this presentation, let me underline that already. We will predominantly be talking about large language models, so LLMs. This is what you need to consider. AI systems have intrinsic properties that may lead to poor decision making, incomplete or erroneous information retrieval, non-conformant usage as part of regulated process activities, non-compliance with applicable legislations, and in health tech in particular, this is important because haphazard use may cause harm. So AI systems, um, you do have a need to understand them if you are a regulatory professional. Now, I have talked about these, or I'm underlining intrinsic properties because I think there are these intrinsic qualities that we are now all becoming aware of that we can examine to try and better understand the importance of AI, but also its limitations. So let's go through some of these intrinsic qualities or properties of AI systems. Hallucinations. You may be familiar with this term by now uh, in relation to AI systems. So here's a definition. We could define it as such. Hallucinations occur when an AI generates information that is factually incorrect, nonsensical, or entirely fabricated, but presented with confidence. So this happens because LLMs predict text based on patterns in their training data, not by accessing a database of facts. They can, quote, fill in the gaps, unquote, when uncertain, and this can lead to plausible sounding but false outputs. I think this can be appreciated if you consider that uh, LLMs are kind of like advanced autocorrect systems. It's not too dissimilar from what the autocorrect is doing when we are trying to write a piece of text to somebody. It is trying to find out what is the most logical next word that we want to put forth. And since this is the background for AI, if we appreciate that that is the background, that is somewhat how this works, it should be easier to understand that it doesn't have contextual understanding of what it is presenting, but it does present things with confidence. Is this an intrinsic feature? Yes, hallucinations are a fundamental limitation of current LLM architectures, though their frequency can be reduced with techniques like fine tuning and something called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, which I will mention again during this presentation, and better prompting. So, again, underlining this idea that not all AI systems are necessarily deployed in the same way. All right? So, this is one of those intrinsic qualities that we can appreciate. Let's have a look at another one that you may have heard of, AI slop. It's not too, it's somehow related, but it's also maybe an intrinsic quality of AI systems. So we can define AI slop as referring to low quality, repetitive, or overly generic outputs, often due to over reliance on probabilistic text generation without sufficient grounding in facts or contexts. So this happens because LLMs are optimized for fluency and coherence, not always for accuracy or depth. Without careful design, they can produce vague, verbose, or off topic responses. Again, we can appreciate that where, in somewhat similar sense, the AI system is trying to make a realistic sounding output, and it is optimized for fluency and coherence in that sense. If there is no access to data or information, well, those responses can be vague, verbose, or off topic, and really not provide much value. If you are trying to solve a problem, you can probably appreciate this if you've had a chat with an AI system, one of the earlier AI systems. They would tend to be very much like a boring chat or conversation partner. Is this an intrinsic quality? Partially, while not as inherent as hallucinations, slop is a common byproduct of how LLMs are trained and deployed, especially when not properly constrained or guided. There are other intrinsic issues leading to performance degradation. This is a big one, actually, bias and fairness. LLMs can perpetuate or amplify biases present in their training data. So there is training data that is at the root of, you could say, developing an AI system. And that training data is obviously going to have a huge impact on how the AI system is performing, what kind of output it is generating. And we can certainly appreciate that there can be, you could say, bias in that sense that obviously there can be bias in the sense that if you're not doing it correctly, you are perpetuating existing discrepancies in the way that data was obtained. So let's give you an example of this. And I think this is going to have an impact in years to come. Let's suppose that for years, the way in which medication had been prescribed to elderly was prescribed, yeah, maybe without too much of a focus on drug-drug interactions. Now you have, you have patient data that pertains to medication, and you see that people are given a certain cocktail of medications when they reach a certain age. Should they be given that cocktail of medication? Maybe, a drug-drug interaction review of some sorts, which would show that no, certain drugs do not combine well, but this may have been the medical practice for years. And so the training data may not reflect the, you could say, better approach to, to treating an elderly patient. Instead, it is going to show a, you could say, biased or unfair or improper reality, real world, scenario. And LLMs are simply going to amplify that bias that is already present in the training data. So this would not even be because of any, you could say, procedural issues or not handling data correctly. This could be simply due to existing biases that we have not considered before, but we now probably would need to consider. Now, this is just a thought example. I don't know how, specifically correct this example is. This is something I'm thinking off the top of my head could have a meaning. But we can certainly, based off of this, appreciate that there could be biases. Beyond that, of course, there are biases that could be related to improper handling of data. Simply trying to, polish the data in some ways. And so you'd really need to think about quality, you need to think about processes when dealing with this as well. Context window limitations. So as conversations get longer, models may lose track of earlier context, leading to inconsistencies. This is something one needs to be aware of. Again, it's a limitation that is built in here. AI systems may not have that much available context or memory, and there can be misunderstandings, so to speak. The system is providing an output. The user may believe that the contextual understanding is present in the AI system, and having that, you could say, understanding, the user may actually be given, different kinds of outputs that are not necessarily related, but think that they are related. So if I'm asking about a very particular aspect of something, and now thinking that the AI system is aware of the fact that I'm talking about this very particular and specific area within something, and I'm asking it questions further down the road, maybe it becomes more general. So there can be inconsistencies. Overfitting to training data, models may perform poorly on out of distribution or novel inputs. You have to be aware of the fact that there may actually be things that are not in the training data. A great example of this was a gentleman on YouTube who realized that some of these AI systems were using YouTube videos to train, to be trained in, and he understood that there was a video regarding a deck of cards, and deck of cards are 52 deck of cards. If you want to find out, how many combinations you can have of a deck of cards by shuffling the cards, well, that is factorial 52. Don't try to give that number to AI because he did that and he broke certain AI systems. This was his wording. Basically, the AI systems didn't know how to respond. He asked them to pronounce the number. It is a huge number. And nobody had pronounced the number in other, you could say, textual sources. And so he could show that there was a video where somebody had pronounced the actual number, and there was an AI system that was using that training data. And then there were AI systems that were not using that training data, and they did not have access to that pronunciation of that huge word. And those that did not have access to that pronunciation simply tried to give, you could say, somewhat of a cheeky response, or I would say it was cheeky because they tried to give a response even though they didn't know the answer, right? So they knew the number, but they didn't know how to pronounce it, but they still tried to give an answer. So one has to be aware of the fact that even though you're getting a response, it may not necessarily indicate that the AI system knows what it's talking about. Again, one of those things that adds to this notion of being aware. Lack of true understanding, yeah, LLMs don't understand content. They generate responses based on statistical patterns, which can lead to superficial or incorrect answers. Think autocorrect, and you are probably going to have a better time trying to wrap your head around what LLMs are. If you think artificial life or something similar, you may be misguided. Just this is just an approach for you to consider. All right, so this should tell us already that there are, of course, these built-in limitations that are caused by what actually makes the systems. These are intrinsic qualities, right? So this is the same thing as Einstein once very beautifully said that you cannot solve the problems that are created by the mindset, by using the mindset that created the problem, right? So you need somebody else to go to. With AI, there are certain problems that are created that are caused by AI being AI. And those are those intrinsic properties or qualities. We, of course, need to be aware of them. And this is not necessarily a bad thing. To know this, we as regulatory and quality professionals need to have that kind of real world, at least feel for the technology, so we are not misguided or misleaded when we are talking about this or trying to even go ahead and implement this in our work. So this means that AI will require constant care. Can these issues be mitigated? Hallucinations use techniques like RAG, we mentioned this before, fact-checking pipelines, and user feedback loops. Now, RAG basically is you could say, if you have access to a cloud or somewhere or if the AI system has access to the cloud, where a number of documents are constantly being generated by experts, well, it has access to something more, right? And so this could help, but it needs that continuous input from experts that are continuously looking at the world, seeing what's happening, talking and discussing about how the technology is performing, and fact checking. And all of this is giving it more and more and more and more to be able to generate better responses. But user feedback loops could even mean having these conversations, sitting down with experts and having conversations, having them transcribed, giving them, having that be something that the system has access to, so that the system is continuously in the loop. And this is going to require human beings because AI will not have certainty around a number of these things, and it will require people to continuously talk about those intrinsic properties. AI slop, yeah, well, improve prompting, use fine tuning, and implement restrict output validation. So again, prompting is important. How you are actually engaging with the AI system. What are the words you're using? What are you, how well have you understood what it is you want to know about and how to get it out of the AI system? It doesn't help you if you've implemented an AI system and it's continuously just giving you AI slop. You also need to have human beings improve their prompting and make sure that it is this system that is not just functioning from the AI system perspective, but also the human perspective. General performance, well, regular updates, better training data, and human-in-the-loop systems help. Again, it's a little bit of the same. We are going to require human beings as part of the system to help ensure that that these systems give you value as opposed to those intrinsic properties basically ruining it for you and not for other maybe of your competitors. Now remember, even then, LLMs can still generate misinformation even when pulling from factually correct sources if the context is misinterpreted. Now this is the New York Times, I believe, made a great example of this. They asked, and this will illustrate the problem. They asked an AI system about whether or not the U.S. had its first Muslim president, and the AI system said yes. The first Muslim president was Barack Hussein Obama. That is a misinterpretation, of course. Barack Obama is not a Muslim or was not a Muslim president. He has obviously a middle name that has an Arabic origin, and the AI misinterpreted this situation but gave a confident response and said that he had been the first Muslim president of the US. So that's just an example of this, that LLMs can still, even though they had access to the name of the president, they had access to all this information, this system still generated misinformation. So AI is simply going to require constant care. And here's another thing to appreciate. We cannot completely understand AI. And this is something that we're seeing more and more of. It's a little bit of a trend, I would even say, this notion of humans not necessarily being able to understand a technology, yet are encouraged to use it. And you could call it you could say, a trend of the postmodern approach to things. I'm not too sure how fond I am of this, but nevertheless, you see it with regards to with quantum computing, where the ideas that people have been purporting is that shut up and calculate, or shut up and kind of use the system. Don't try to understand it. The idea of quantum entanglement is not completely understood, but generate the data, use it. That's all you should care about. This is kind of dangerous, I would say, but this is a very much a trend at the moment, I'm going to call it. And we see something similar with AI because experts can explain how AI systems are built, how a particular system is built, what the training data is, what are some of those, other components that are linked to it. But even they can't trace exactly why a model gives a specific output, especially for the most advanced AI. And you will find this if you ask an engineer, an expert on AI, what is going to, can you tell me, how will it know a particular thing, or how does it work? It'll just say, well, why don't we, the engineer might just say, well, why don't we just ask the AI system? Because the engineer is not going to be able to tell you exactly why the AI is going to give a specific output, right? So this is simply, again, the way that the technology works. And I think this is this is a special kind of challenge for regulatory and quality professionals. Just think of the challenges that this presents in relation to our current way of doing validation and auditing. Certainly, from this, you should be able to appreciate that this is something different, and there are probably this is going to require some special approaches to utilizing this if you want to use it in a much more advanced way. But also that you maybe should start much more simple in a much more simple way if you're working within healthcare and health tech. This should underscore that. Now, there's a ground reality that we need to consider. AI needs you. as much as it can help you. This should be evident at this point that if we are to be regulatory and quality professionals and use this for systems or technologies that are going to impact humans' lives, patients, the weak and the vulnerable, then we need to really appreciate this fact. And so, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and now come with some examples, and I'm going to kind of split things up into activities that likely require AI validation, where you are using AI, but you are going to require AI validation, activities that typically do not require AI validation, and then that gray area where you need to proceed with caution because AI usage in that domain may not be completely understood. And towards the end, I'm going to give you some best practices for low-risk AI use that I've considered. I think they can be of help for you as well. Let's jump right into the activities that are likely going to require AI validation. So these are basically uses where AI directly influences regulated processes, decisions, or outputs. This should be quite self-evident if you're working in quality or regulatory affairs. When it comes to decision making, AI used to make or support regulatory decisions, such as automated risk assessments or compliance determinations, this is going to be part of your, quality management. And so, automating any, processes or any such, activities where you are actually kind of pushing over the decision making to the AI, you really need to make sure that the AI is validated. You need to be able to document this so that you are ensuring safety and performance and efficacy. Data analysis for submissions, AI tools that analyze clinical safety or quality data for regulatory filings. Again, I think this should be evident, but nevertheless, I can see the allure of trying to be more efficient, and I think that there will be systems that where the AI validation is justified, and there is going to be so much benefit in doing this that investing in this is a good idea. But AI tools that basically analyze clinical safety or quality data, well, those that kind of activity is so crucial for your regulatory filing, for what you are claiming this product can do with regards to safety and efficacy, for the benefit risk ratio. I mean, if you are using an AI tool for that, obviously it should be, there should be validation here. It needs to be validated, and you need to make sure, and likely this is going to be part of, any future audits to go into details with regards to how you're doing this. Automated document generation, AI that generates or modifies regulated documents, e.g. labels, protocols, reports. Again, this one, I think I even had a conversation once with somebody. There is a very common, I would say there are two camps with regards to this. There is a camp that believes that, documents, when you are getting ready to file, do a regulatory filing, or you can go ahead and start those regulated documents, and you can try to create them even though the product is still being, developed. And that is a little bit of a misunderstanding. The idea that the other camp, I think, which I belong to as well, is that really you need to have you need to have some quality processes, and the output of those activities that are done in those processes is what generates documents. And those are the regulated documents that you're supposed to be using. So how can you generate documents separate from your activities? That doesn't make any sense. So you need to be very much, you know, aware of this when you are especially talking to suppliers maybe that claim that they can automate, document generation. Are they talking about automating documents? by getting some inputs. How exactly are they talking about this? How is it linked to to you know your processes? Are you talking about a paradigm of procedural output and that being your document, or are you talking about a paradigm of deliverables and that this is a document that has been delivered? You will see that in the field, be aware of it. But obviously, if AI is being used in any way or shape or form for that activity, needs to be validated, needs to make sense with the rest of your activities that are part of your quality, efforts. Process automation. This should be a no-brainer as well. AI that automates steps in validated process, e.g., batch record review, deviation management. If this is something that is part of your procedural setup within MedTech, obviously ISO 13485 even states it very specifically that any software that is used to automate a process needs to be validated. So in that sense, this obviously will need to be that as well. So why? Because these uses can impact product quality, safety, or compliance. So they typically fall under a QMS or quality scope and require validation. Okay, so those are the activities that definitely require validation. You have to consider that when you are dealing with something like that. Now let's have a look at those activities that typically do not require AI validation. So these are low risk administrative or non-patient impacting uses. So this can be administrative automation. AI schedules meetings, manages inventory, or processes invoices. These are very much a part of just doing business, being productive. It is not necessarily related to your product directly. Literature or data summarization. AI summarizes research papers, internal reports, or business analytics with human review. I think this is a great one because this is an activity that many times we as regulatory professionals are asked to do, not necessarily research papers, but certainly if we are doing regulatory intelligence, we've been at meetings, we've taken some very lengthy notes. Well, we need to summarize this in some way. And using AI to summarize and reviewing that summarized, work that AI systems have produced so that you can communicate easier to your colleagues or others in your company what kind of the main outputs were. I think that makes a lot of sense. You are the one doing it, whether you're using an AI to summarize it and then reviewing it, going through it, or you are doing it yourself. This is not related to your product. This is related to communication with other colleagues. The actual documents and actual notes you still have. So this is a good and interesting, meaningful use that you should consider doing when you are working in general. Non-clinical data analysis. AI analyzes sales trends, supply chain logistics, or operational metrics. So there are a number of these kinds of business-related informatics that help, they can help make business decisions when whether it's a distribution office or other management or administrative groups need to discuss, business related uh, uh, need to make some decisions on that or have some conversations and understandings on main issues. Well, there AI can be a useful tool. Again, it's in the context of having experts there, having sales representatives that really understand their sales numbers, so that there is nothing that is fabricated or in other ways wrong or misrepresented, then it makes a lot of sense. General customer and employee supports all AI powers, frequently asked questions, chatbots, or internal help desks, again, with no medical or regulatory advice. So this can be very general kinds of, you know, chatbots that just help the end user where people, employees find other people, find the right, places to go to read more. All those kinds of things I think are just low-hanging fruits for AI. This is something that improves the experience. So why? Because these things have no direct impact on patient safety, product quality, or regulatory decisions. And in those cases where they don't have that, validation is typically not required. But basic IT controls obviously still apply, and those are typically built in when you are using these kinds of systems. So those are those activities that typically do not require AI validation. So this is a good slide for you to go through if you are uncertain of how to use AI right now. Try one of these because you can probably do it without AI validation. Okay, so now we move into the gray areas, and here you have to proceed with caution. These uses may or may not require validation depending on context and risk. Patient triage or screening tools. So AI suggests urgency levels or next steps for patient care, not a final diagnosis. This is a very atypical scenario. Urgency levels. What are urgency levels exactly? What exactly is it that it's going to be conveying? You need to really get into the details of that description. You need to make sure that everybody is really understanding what they're trying to build here and kind of unpack everything to make sure you understand this before you proceed. Wearable health data interpretation. AI analyzes consumer device data, smartwatches for wellness or lifestyle advice. Now, we've already have a little bit more of a, you could say, things are leaning more towards this being something that needs to be validated. With regards to how AI is looking, or sorry, FDA is looking at this. There have been some recent cases with wellness companies that are using smartwatch data. But again, how exactly are you using it? You need to go into the details of it. AI in clinical trial operations. AI selects patients, monitors trial data, or predicts enrollment. These are also things you need to consider. Predictive analytics for resource planning. AI forecasts hospital bed demand, staffing needs, or equipment maintenance. Now, again, that's a very big system. You need to be very specific exactly what is going to be happening and how is this going to be used. Why are we considering these as gray areas? Well, because indirect or evolving impact on patient care or compliance. You have to document risk assessments and consult regulators as needed for this. So in the next phase, I'm going to show how I use AI as a regulatory professional. So I've put it down into some best practices or some principles. And so again, these should be fairly self-evident, but nevertheless, here are some principles that you could follow. Transparency. Clearly disclose that you are going to be using AI and what the limitations are to your colleagues and users. This way, you're being transparent about using AI, and it's going to allow, you could say, even more human oversight. There could be others that can help you, and that is a good thing, right? Human oversight in general ensure critical outputs are reviewed by qualified personnel. So this, I think, is extremely important. You can get a lot of output out of AI, but that doesn't mean that just because you don't know anything about it, that you cannot use it. You can, if you are reviewing it by qualified personnel. If you've looked into something and you had the idea to do it, well, that could be a good thing. You show it to those people who are actually experts in that within your organization or in your network and have them review it. So, in that sense, qualified personnel, uh, if you want a really good guide on what that means, we typically talk about competency. A competent person is a qualified person, and competency deals with somebody who has the proper education, the proper experience, and the proper skills or training related to something. And if that kind of a qualified person is near you with regards to a topic, maybe you've looked at how to work with AI, well, then you can find a qualified person that knows something about AI and discuss it with them, as I have in relation to this presentation as well, when I'm kind of basing it on my AI literacy course that I am taking at the moment. Data integrity: use high quality representative data, avoid bias and errors. Now, these next points are really going to be, in some ways, about standards. There are more and more widely accepted standards, and more are on their way. And these standards will help you establish some of those key points that you need to work in a very methodic way, in. So data integrity: use high quality representative data, avoid bias and errors. What does that mean? Refer to standards for that. Change management: document and control AI model updates and retraining. Uh, you know, Clearly you have to retrain data. The world changes. Your AI system may have facts about something that happened yesterday or last year, but maybe new standards exist or new regulatory changes have come about, and so you need to update it. So make sure that you are managing those changes. Audit trails: log inputs, outputs, and user interactions for traceability. Again, have a good way of logging and ensuring that it's being logged correctly, everything is validated, so that we can trust the traceability, and we have the traceability that is required with regards to audits. Uh, make a, you know, make a, Put some effort into your internal auditing process as well. That's a great place, I think, to start working with a number of technologies to see if they can support in a meaningful way your company as a whole when it comes to audits. Compliance: align with GDPR, HIPAA, and other relevant data protection laws. Obviously, it's a good idea to have a regulatory assessment made as soon as possible, at any time actually, in relation to what you're doing. If you have a health tech product that you want to create, have that list of regulatory texts. These may not necessarily only pertain to sector-specific legislative texts. We are seeing a lot more complexity with regards to the regulatory domain. We have obviously the vertical regulation that typically is related to your sector, but even sector, is a word that is challenged, you could say, because technologies are so multifaceted. But you have your vertical regulation typically, or legislation, and you have horizontal legislations, like maybe something related to, you know, uh, the environment, or or Green Deal that the European Union has put forward, where you are a part of those sectors that is affected in some way. So the horizontal legislative text is going to affect your vertical implementation of your vertical legislative text. But then, of course, you have the layered element as well, where other regulations are going to affect you, not necessarily through your vertical regulation in a horizontal way, but in a completely unique way or a different way. You're also going to have to deal with those legislative texts. So, layered approach as well. So, we are seeing this complexity in the compliance domain, and you need to align with those legislative texts and those laws that pertain to you. So, regulatory assessments, have them made and make them more, you could say, uh, make them a domain not only of the regulatory professionals that are product specific, but also the legal team as such. And now here's a rule of thumb that I would give to RAQA professionals. If it touches a patient, a product, or a submission, validate. If it's administrative, document it. If it's a gray area, a lot of the regulators, this is not like before 10, 20 years ago, where there was this culture of kind of staying away from the regulators. Now the regulators are very open. They want to talk. They're very, welcoming and approachable. So ask the regulator if you are in doubt. All right. So that concludes this presentation. I hope this presentation, if you are completely, you've been on the side or you've been on the fence, you could say, with regards to using AI as a regulatory quality professional, let me first say that makes a lot of sense. It should be so that you are maybe a little bit more conservative than other, departments in your organization, because that is basically what regulatory and quality professionals need to be, very much, they need to kind of be that in order to make sure that everything in place before it is used in relation to something that's going to affect patient safety and efficacy for a product. So that makes sense. But hopefully, this presentation is going to open it up for you. It's going to allow you to think about this as something that you can use, and something that is maybe less mystified. You could you can see from it that AI is not uh, this artificial intelligence being. It's a system, and as other systems, there's some validation that you need to get your or wrap your head around, but also that obviously you can use it in a number of ways, just without validating it, because you are using it as a tool, you could say, IT tool of such. So, with that, I think this presentation should help you get things started in your organization. So, the circle, if you don't know, is the organization that I represent. This is my own company. The circle comprises of, it really started off with a podcast called The Circle, where I interview some of the most amazing and fascinating profiles in the health tech domain. I've had futurists on, I've had entrepreneurs on, and this is a way in which we try to humanize this domain. We talk about science fiction stories, and from that, we begin to talk about the reality of where technology is today. If you haven't heard the Circle podcast, we're available on all the major platforms. You should, give it a listen. It's usually only 15 to 25 minutes, and it's just it's a journey, you could say, where sci-fi and health tech collide, right? Beyond that, we create content and educational material for regulatory professionals, quality professionals, and health tech professionals. So whether you're in regulatory quality or in other domains and you want to know about these kinds of topics and want to get educated on this, then this is the kind of content and material that the Circle creates. You should visit our website, thecircleinsider.com, for more information. Here you will get news from some of the major content creators in our field, and you will also have access to those places where you can see, upcoming courses that we are developing. Another part that I would like to talk to you about right now is that since we are creating content and course material, we also offer tailored course materials for your organization. Yes, we will have a number of courses available that are very much focused on trying to grasp how we can use technologies and how we can understand the new legislative texts that are coming. The BioTech Act is something that there's a heavy focus on from our end at the moment. You will be seeing a full course on the BioTech Act that just gives you an introduction to the BioTech Act very shortly. But we are also focused on creating course material and training material that is very specific to your organization. And all you have to do is to reach out to me and give me your needs with regards to something like that. Training is now a crucial element of maintaining not just competency within your organization, but as you've probably seen now in this presentation as well, it will actually be a crucial part of maintaining a system of humans and AI and ensuring that that human in the loop element of your organization that is supercharged with AI is actually going to make your entire setup perform better. So we are there to specifically address that specific scenario. So with that, I'm going to bid you adieu and encourage you to find us on all the platforms and visit the website, thecircleinsider.com. Thank you for today.